What's the most uncomfortable money you've ever made? The quiet kid from my English class slipped me $50 and said, I need you to come to my birthday party. My mom has cancer, and I want her to think I have friends. I felt bad and needed the money, so I said yes. On Saturday at 4 p.m., Jordan met me at their front door, practically shaking. Be gone by 6:15. My dad gets home from the casino at 6:30. I was so focused on the quick cash grab that I didn't even notice the way Jordan limped. Jordan's mom appeared behind him, skeletal thin with a silk scarf hiding her baldness. You must be from English class. Jordan talks about you all the time. She hugged me, and I felt her bones through her dress. But what struck me was how Jordan physically positioned himself between us, like a shield, like a habit. Come in before Tom sees the door open this long, she whispered, then caught herself. I mean, come in from the cold. The living room had 15 teenagers I'd never seen before, all sitting stiffly like we were in detention. When Jordan's mom went to the kitchen, a girl whispered, You're here for $50, right? You too? Everyone nodded. We were all hired, all from different schools. I went to use the bathroom and my heart dropped. The entire house was completely empty except for the party room. No furniture anywhere else. That's when I realized every penny of their money was going to his mom's treatment and the party. Jordan's mom returned, hands shaking as she poured drinks. It's so wonderful seeing the house full of life again. We haven't had visitors in 3 years, not since Tom got promoted to floor security at the casino. She unconsciously touched a faded yellow bruise on her wrist. All that money makes him paranoid. He counts every dollar, knows where each penny goes. Jordan went rigid at the word penny. His mom continued, not noticing. He gives Jordan $300 every week to bet his lucky numbers while he works. Says teenagers on the floor bring luck. I knew by the look in Jordan's eyes that he had used the money to invite us. By 5:30, all of us were getting ready to leave, mumbling excuses. Jordan grabbed the remaining 8 of us, pressing $20 more into our hands. Please, just until 6:15. My mom hasn't smiled like this since her diagnosis. She needs one good day before. He didn't finish. At 5:45, Jordan started cleaning obsessively, checking their phone every 10 seconds. His mom tried to help, but nearly fainted. Baby, we should clean up now. You know how he gets about messes. And the money, Jordan. Please tell me you didn't touch the casino money. At 6 o'clock, Jordan started hyperventilating. Everyone needs to leave. Now, please. They were shoving us toward the door, desperation replacing everything else. I thought I had more time. He's getting off early. His friend just texted me. His mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. One happy day isn't worth what he'll do. Why didn't you listen to me? That's when I understood. This wasn't about Jordan's mom thinking they had friends. This was Jordan trying to give their dying mother one perfect memory before she was gone. At 6:10, headlights swept the driveway. Jordan shoved us out the back door. Go, go, go! Don't look back! We scattered across the backyard, but curiosity got the better of me. I didn't hop the fence. Through the kitchen window, I watched Jordan's father walk in, 6'3" in his casino security uniform, scanning the cake, the decorations, his wife trying to smile. Where's my money, Jordan? His voice carried through the glass. I'll replace it tomorrow. I get paid. Where is my money? Jordan's mom tried to stand. Tom, please, it's his birthday. Sit down. He didn't look at her. Jordan, I'm going to ask one more time. I used it. For the party. For Mom. Another hired friend grabbed my arm. We should go. But I already had my phone out, recording through the window as Jordan's father grabbed him by the collar, dragged him into the hallway out of his mom's sight. Thump. We heard a sound like someone falling. Then his mom screamed, $300 for what? For strangers to pretend to like you? I pushed through the fence and started running, my sneakers slapping against wet grass as I cut through the first backyard. Behind me, I heard the other hired friend scrambling over the fence too, but I didn't look back. My legs pumped hard as I jumped over a garden hose and ducked under a low-hanging branch. The phone in my pocket felt like it was burning through my jeans, that video of Tom dragging Jordan into the hallway playing over and over in my head. I vaulted over a chain-link fence into another yard where a dog started barking like crazy. My heart was pounding, so hard I thought it might explode. I kept running through a third backyard, finally stopping behind someone's shed to catch my breath. Even from 2 blocks away, I could still hear Jordan's mom screaming, the sound carrying through the quiet neighborhood like a siren. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and saw 14 missed calls already. The screen lit up with text after text from the other hired kids, everyone freaking out about what just happened. Someone asked if we should call the cops. Another person said to delete everything and pretend we were never there. A girl whose name I didn't even know created a group chat called Jordan's Party, and suddenly all 14 of us were typing at once. Half the kids wanted to help somehow, but the other half were scared of getting in trouble or making things worse for Jordan. People were arguing about whether we'd get arrested for taking money to go to the party. One kid said his dad was a lawyer and we could all get sued. Another girl kept typing that we needed to do something, anything, because Jordan was probably getting hurt right now. The notifications kept coming so fast, I couldn't read them all. I turned my phone to silent and started walking home, taking the long way through the park to avoid any chance of running into Tom's car. My legs felt like jelly, and my shirt was soaked with sweat, even though it was cold outside. When I finally got home, I went straight to my room and locked the door. I pulled up the video on my phone and watched it again, this time really looking at the details. The way Jordan moved when he first opened the door that afternoon suddenly made sense. He had this weird way of turning his whole body, instead of just his head, keeping his left side protected. His limp wasn't from some sports injury or accident. This was someone who knew exactly how to move to avoid making injuries worse. I watched the video 3 more times, each time noticing something new, like how Jordan automatically stepped back when Tom raised his hand, or how his mom flinched before Tom even moved toward her. I opened my messages and started typing to Jordan's number. "Are you okay?" Looked stupid on the screen, so I deleted it. I saw what happened, but that felt like a threat, so I erased that too. After 20 minutes of typing and deleting different messages, I finally wrote, "I'm here if you need anything," and then just stared at it. My thumb hovered over the send button, but I couldn't make myself press it. What if Tom had Jordan's phone? What if sending this made things worse? I put the phone down and tried to do homework, but the words on the page just blurred together. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that thump from the hallway and Jordan's mom screaming. I kept thinking about her saying, "You know how he gets about messes," and the way her hand shook when she talked about the casino money. She knew what would happen if Tom found out about the missing $300. She knew, and she was terrified, but Jordan did it anyway because he wanted her to have one good day. I gave up on homework and tried to play video games, but couldn't focus on that either. Around midnight, I finally got in bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I just laid there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything from the party, the empty rooms, the way Jordan kept checking his phone, his mom's bruised wrist, Tom's voice through the window, that thump. I must have dozed off eventually because my alarm woke me up for school. I felt sick to my stomach but forced myself to get dressed and catch the bus. The second I walked into first period, I knew word had already spread about the party. Kids were whispering and laughing about the desperate loser who had to pay people to come to his birthday. Someone said they heard he offered $100 just for friends. Another person called it the most pathetic thing they'd ever heard. I wanted to grab them and scream that they didn't understand anything, that Jordan was trying to do something beautiful for his dying mom. But I just sat there like a coward and kept my mouth shut. By third period, I was zoning out completely, just staring at the wall thinking about Jordan and whether he was even alive. My history teacher noticed and asked me to stay after class. She said I looked tired and asked if something was bothering me. I mumbled that I didn't sleep well and started to leave, but she handed me a small white card with the counselor's name on it. She said sometimes talking helps, even when we think it won't. At lunch, my phone buzzed with a text from Jordan's number. "I'm fine. Don't send anything to anyone." The message was weird, too perfect with proper punctuation and grammar. No teenager I knew wrote texts like that, especially not after what happened last night. It felt like someone was watching Jordan type it, or maybe even typing it for him. After school, I was heading to my locker when the girl who created the group chat found me. She pulled me into an empty classroom and whispered that she saw more than what I recorded. She was closer to the house when Tom grabbed Jordan, and she saw him grab Jordan by the throat, right before we heard that thump. Her hands shook as she showed me a blurry photo on her phone of Tom's hand around Jordan's neck through the kitchen doorway. The image was dark and fuzzy, but you could still make out what was happening. She asked what we should do with it. That evening, I sat at my computer Googling how to report child abuse. Every website said you could make anonymous reports, but then warned that investigators might need your real identity later for court. Some sites said reports without names got lower priority. Others said false reports could get you in legal trouble. The more I read, the more overwhelmed I felt. I had evidence of Tom hurting Jordan, but didn't know how to help without making everything worse or getting myself in trouble. After an hour of research, I closed my laptop and just sat there feeling useless. Jordan needed help, but helping someone turned out to be way more complicated than just wanting to do the right thing. Mom's voice came up the stairs telling me dinner was ready, but I just called back that I wasn't hungry. She didn't push it, which was weird since I never skip meals, but I guess she figured I was just being a teenager or something. I couldn't eat knowing what I'd seen at that party. I kept seeing Jordan's face when his dad grabbed him and hearing that sound from the hallway. My stomach felt sick, just thinking about food, while Jordan was probably hurt bad, and his mom was too weak to help him. I tried watching TV, but nothing could distract me from thinking about how Jordan spent $300 just to give his dying mom one good memory before she was gone. Around 11, I finally went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw birthday cake smashed on the floor and headlights in the driveway, and Tom's huge hands counting money while Jordan bled somewhere in that empty house. The nightmares started as soon as I dozed off. Tom was chasing me through empty rooms while Jordan's mom cried in the background and I couldn't find the door. Then I was at the party again. But this time, Tom came home early and found all of us there and started grabbing kids one by one. I woke up at 3 in the morning covered in sweat with my heart racing and that thump sound still echoing in my ears. I couldn't go back to sleep, so I just laid there staring at the ceiling until my alarm went off. By the time the sun came up, I knew I had to tell someone who could actually help. Jordan and his mom needed more than a bunch of scared teenagers with cell phone videos. They needed real help from adults who knew what to do about this stuff. I got dressed and caught the bus to the school, feeling like I was going to throw up the whole ride. The second I walked into first period, I looked for Jordan's desk, but it was empty. When they did morning announcements and called his name for excessive absences, my stomach dropped to the floor. That empty desk in English class felt like it was staring at me and accusing me of not doing enough to help. I kept looking at the door, hoping he'd walk in late with some excuse, but he never showed up. In the locker room before gym, I noticed a dark purple bruise on my shoulder from when I squeezed through Jordan's back door while running away. It made everything feel more real seeing actual proof on my body that the party happened. If I got hurt just from leaving the house, what happened to Jordan after we all ran away and left him alone with his dad? The bruise was the size of a baseball and hurt when I touched it. During lunch, instead of going to the cafeteria, I walked to the counselor's office and stood outside the door for like 5 minutes before going in. My hand shook as I wrote my name on the sign-up sheet for an appointment. The secretary looked at me over her glasses and said, "Alyssa Weaver could see me after school at 3:30 if that worked." I nodded and left before I could chicken out. The rest of the day dragged by so slow I thought the clocks were broken. When 3:30 finally came, I was sitting outside Weaver's office sweating through my shirt. She opened the door and smiled at me, and waved me inside to a small room with 2 chairs and tissues on the table. I sat down and started talking before I could lose my nerve. I told her about the party and the $50 and the empty house, except for that one room with decorations. I explained about Jordan's mom having cancer and being so thin you could see her bones and the bruise on her wrist. I described Tom coming home early and the $300 of casino money Jordan used for the party. I told her everything except the other kids' names because I didn't want to drag them into this if they didn't want to be involved. Weaver took notes on a yellow pad without interrupting, even when I got to the part about Tom dragging Jordan into the hallway and that awful sound we heard. Her face stayed carefully neutral the whole time, like she was trained not to react to stuff like this. When I finished, she put down her pen and looked at me for a long moment. She explained that teachers and counselors are required by law to report suspected child abuse to the authorities. Then she asked if I had any evidence like the video I mentioned recording through the window. My fingers trembled as I unlocked my phone and handed it to her. She watched the video once all the way through without saying anything. Then she watched it a second time and paused at certain parts to look closer. She made a copy of the video onto her computer for the report she had to file. While I was still sitting there, she picked up her desk phone and called CPS. She used words like immediate danger and medical neglect, and gave them Jordan's name and address. She told them about the cancer and the empty house and the video evidence. She scheduled something called a wellness check for that evening and wrote down a case number on a sticky note. After she hung up, she gave me a business card with her direct phone number written on the back. She said I did the right thing by coming forward, and that help was on the way for Jordan and his mom. Right then, my phone buzzed with a text from Jordan's number that said, "Please stop whatever you're doing with perfect grammar and punctuation again." I showed it to Weaver, and she took a picture of it with her phone and wrote down the time it came in. She said it looked like potential coercion and added it to her report. She told me not to respond to the text and to let her know if I got any more messages. The whole meeting took about an hour, and when I left her office, I felt exhausted, but also relieved that an adult was finally doing something to help. Weaver walked me to the door and mentioned something about Jordan's neighbor already calling the cops about noise from their house. She said the neighbor's name was Peggy Slater, and she'd reported screaming twice this month already. The reports were in the system now, which helped our case look stronger. I walked home feeling weird about everything, like I'd started something I couldn't stop. Around 7 that night, I was doing homework when I saw a cop car pull up to Jordan's house through my bedroom window. I watched Officer Tristan Cates get out and walk to their front door. Tom answered wearing regular clothes, not his casino uniform, and stood in the doorway blocking the view inside. I could see him smiling and talking with his hands, pointing at the house like he was explaining something. Cates stood there for maybe 10 minutes trying to look past Tom into the house, but Tom kept shifting to block his view. Finally, Cates walked back to his car and sat there writing in a notebook for a while before driving away. My phone rang around 9, and it was Weaver calling from her personal number. She told me to stay away from Tom completely and write down everything I remembered while it was still fresh in my head. She sounded tired and frustrated when she explained that the cop couldn't get inside without someone asking for help or seeing actual injuries. She said the system moves really slow when victims won't or can't speak up for themselves. I spent an hour writing everything down in a notebook, every detail I could remember about the party and what happened after. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize that said, "We're okay. Please don't come by. Mom needs rest." The grammar was perfect, and the punctuation was all correct, which made it feel fake. I sent a screenshot to Weaver right away, and she replied saying it looked coached. The next morning at the school, the principal called me out of first period to the office. Weaver was there with a woman in a gray suit who introduced herself as Valeria Proctor from CPS. Proctor had a folder with my name on it and asked me to go through everything again while she took notes. She wanted to see the video, so I showed it to her on my phone, and she made her own copy on a tablet. She asked for names of other kids who were at the party, and I gave her contact info for 3 who said they'd be willing to talk. Most of the hired kids were too scared to get involved or thought it would make things worse for Jordan. Even getting 3 people to agree to talk felt like a miracle. Proctor said she'd contact them today and thanked me for coming forward. Meanwhile, at the casino, Tom was losing it according to what I heard later. His supervisor, Ricardo Holmes, noticed Tom checking security cameras over and over, looking at footage from the parking lots near his own neighborhood instead of doing his actual job. Tom kept snapping at other security guards about money going missing from his locker, even though nobody else had access to it. Holmes started writing down every time Tom acted weird or aggressive with coworkers. He saw Tom reviewing the same parking lot footage from Saturday night, like he was looking for something specific. Holmes went to HR and told them Tom seemed to be having personal problems that were affecting his work. He mentioned concerns about liability if Tom's issues got worse and affected casino operations. HR made a note in Tom's file and said they'd monitor the situation. That same day at the school, Jordan walked past me in the hallway between 3rd and 4th period. He bumped into me on purpose and dropped a folded piece of notebook paper. I picked it up and unfolded it in the bathroom where nobody could see. It said library book return slot with an address I recognized as the public library downtown. Under that, it said he counts our phones at night in shaky handwriting. I read it 3 times to memorize the message, then tore it into tiny pieces and flushed it down the toilet. After school, I rode my bike to the library trying to look casual, like I was just there to study. The book return slot was one of those metal boxes outside the main entrance. I stuck my hand inside and felt around until I found something taped to the inside wall. It was a small flash drive wrapped in plastic. My heart was beating, so fast I thought everyone could hear it. I shoved the drive in my pocket and went inside the library to sit at a computer in the back corner. The drive had audio files with dates from the last 3 months. I put in earbuds and clicked the first one. It was Tom screaming about the missing $300 and calling Jordan worthless. Another file had Tom threatening to take Jordan's mom off her meds if Jordan didn't follow his rules exactly. There were photos, too, showing every room in their house completely empty, except for that one party room. One photo showed a stack of medical bills on the kitchen counter, totaling $47,000. Another showed Jordan's mom's pill bottles lined up on the bathroom sink, with most of them empty. The last file was a video Jordan must have recorded on his phone, showing Tom counting money at the kitchen table while his mom sat across from him crying. Tom kept saying she was wasting his money on treatments that weren't working anyway. I copied everything to my phone and put the drive back in my pocket. This was exactly the kind of proof Weaver and Proctor needed to help Jordan and his mom get away from Tom. The next day at the school, Weaver pulled me into her office during lunch, and Proctor was already there with a woman I didn't know who turned out to be a domestic violence advocate. They spread out papers on the desk and started planning when they could visit Jordan's house safely. Proctor kept checking her phone for Tom's work schedule that Holmes had sent over from the casino. They picked Thursday at 2 in the afternoon, when Tom would be in the middle of his shift and couldn't leave without his supervisor noticing. The advocate kept asking questions about the layout of the house and where the exits were, and I drew them a map on notebook paper showing the back door we'd all run through that night. Weaver made copies of everything and gave me her personal cell number in case anything happened before Thursday. I was walking to my next class when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize, but the message made my stomach drop. Jordan was warning me that Tom had been going through his room and noticed one of his thumb drives was missing from his desk drawer. He said he'd left a decoy USB with video game files in the same spot to buy time, but Tom was getting more suspicious and counting everything in the house now. I screenshot the message and sent it to Weaver right away. She texted back that they might need to move up the home visit if things were getting worse. Thursday came, and I couldn't focus on anything at the school, knowing Cates and Proctor were going to Jordan's house. Around 2:30, my phone vibrated with a text from Weaver saying they were at the house, and Tom had to let them in, because CPS was involved now, and refusing would make everything worse for him. She said Jordan's mom looked terrible, and could barely stand up when she answered the door. I kept refreshing my messages, waiting for updates. At 3:15, Weaver called me, and I ducked into the bathroom to answer. She said during the visit Jordan's mom had collapsed in the living room, and they'd called EMTs right away. The paramedics were taking her to the hospital, and this gave them a legitimate reason to examine her condition and document everything. I asked if Jordan was okay, and she said he was riding in the ambulance with his mom, and Proctor was following in her car. After school, I rode my bike to the hospital, even though Weaver said I shouldn't come, but I needed to know what was happening. I sat in the lobby for 2 hours before Proctor came down and saw me. She looked tired, but said the doctors had found bruising on Jordan's mom that didn't match her story about falling down the stairs. The bruises were in different stages of healing, which meant they happened at different times, and the pattern suggested someone had grabbed her arms repeatedly. The doctors filed their own mandatory report, which would add more weight to the case. Proctor said Jordan was upstairs with his mom, and she was going to explain the emergency protective order process to him. I asked if I could see him, but she said it wasn't a good time. Later that night, Jordan texted me from his mom's phone saying Proctor had explained how they could get a court order to keep Tom away, but he was scared about what would happen if his dad lost his job at the casino. He said they needed the health insurance for his mom's treatment, and without Tom's income, they'd lose the house. I didn't know what to tell him because he was right about the money problem. The next morning, I heard from Weaver that Holmes had scheduled a meeting with Tom about his behavior at work. Other security guards had been complaining that Tom was aggressive and paranoid, and it was affecting workplace safety. Holmes told Tom that any legal issues could affect his security clearance, which he needed to keep his job at the casino. Tom apparently got really quiet when Holmes mentioned the legal issues and asked what he'd heard. Holmes said he couldn't discuss specifics, but the casino had a reputation to protect, and they took domestic violence allegations seriously. Tom left the meeting and called in sick for his next 2 shifts, which made Holmes document everything in Tom's employee file. Friday after school, I was sitting on the bus when I looked out the window and saw Tom's car 2 cars behind us. My heart started racing because there was no reason for him to be on this route unless he was following me. I texted Weaver immediately, and she told me to get off at a different stop than usual and go into a public place. I got off 3 stops early at the strip mall and walked into the dollar store trying to look casual. Through the window, I watched Tom's car slow down near the bus stop, then speed up when he saw I wasn't there. I stayed in the store for 20 minutes pretending to look at the school supplies while my hands shook. The cashier asked if I needed help finding something, and I bought a pack of gum just to have a reason for being there so long. Weaver texted me to stay put, and she'd come pick me up. While I waited, I thought about how Tom must have figured out I was involved somehow, and now he was trying to intimidate me. Weaver arrived in her personal car and had me duck down in the back seat until we were away from the area. She drove me home and walked me to the door to explain to my mom that I was helping with an investigation and might need extra safety precautions. My mom's face went white when she heard about Tom following the bus, but Weaver gave her a card with emergency numbers and said the police were aware of the situation. That night I couldn't sleep because every car that drove past our house made me think Tom had found where I lived. Saturday morning I went to the police station with Weaver to file an official report about Tom following me. She helped me write down exact times and locations while the officer typed everything into the computer. Weaver said Tom was getting desperate because he knew people were watching him now and the walls were closing in. She showed me how to take screenshots of my location history on my phone to prove where I'd been. The officer gave me a case number and said they'd add it to Tom's growing file. Later that afternoon, I got a text from Jordan saying his mom was in the hospital again. I rode my bike there and found Proctor in the waiting room filling out paperwork. She told me the doctors admitted Jordan's mom for severe dehydration and malnutrition because she couldn't keep food down anymore. The oncology social worker came down to talk with Proctor about safe discharge options since sending her back home wasn't safe. They mentioned something called medical foster care if Jordan couldn't stay with his mom. I sat in the lobby for 3 hours watching nurses rush past with medicine carts and wheelchairs. Jordan came down once to get a drink from the vending machine, and his eyes looked empty. He said his mom kept asking about Tom and worrying about who would take care of him. That night at 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a voice message from Jordan. His voice sounded hollow and tired as he explained that Tom only backed down when cops or his boss were watching. He said those were the only times he could breathe without being scared. I listened to it 3 times and saved it to send to Weaver in the morning. Monday after school, Proctor called me to explain they were arranging emergency shelter placement for Jordan and his mom. She said Jordan had to agree to leave without Tom's permission, which was scary for him. The fear in Jordan's eyes when he heard this made my chest hurt. Proctor explained the shelter had security and Tom wouldn't know where they were. Jordan kept asking what would happen to their stuff and if his mom's medicine would transfer. Meanwhile, at the casino, Holmes was getting more complaints about Tom's aggressive behavior with other security guards. Tom had shoved a coworker who asked about his family situation and threatened another who mentioned the police visits. Holmes documented everything and scheduled a meeting with Human Resources about Tom's deteriorating work performance. The union rep got involved saying Tom needed support, not punishment, but Holmes said workplace safety came first. Tom's job was hanging by a thread, and everyone at the casino knew it. Wednesday evening, Peggy Slater went to the police station to give a written statement about what she'd seen over the years. She told them about seeing Jordan limping to the school multiple times and hearing Tom threaten to teach him a lesson through the walls. She had specific dates written in her diary that matched when Jordan missed school. The officer taking her statement asked if she'd testify in court, and she said yes, without hesitating. Thursday morning, Cates drove to Tom's workplace to serve him with notice of an emergency protective order hearing. Tom saw him coming through the security cameras and met him in the parking lot. When Cates handed him the papers, Tom made a threat about people who don't mind their own business. Cates had his body camera running and caught every word Tom said about making people sorry. He added this to his report and filed it with the court immediately. Tom went back inside and punched a wall in the break room hard enough to leave a hole. Friday after school, Weaver called me into her office to help me prepare if I needed to testify. She coached me to stick to facts without adding extra details or opinions. She said my video and willingness to speak up had started the dominoes falling for Jordan's family. We practiced answering questions about what I saw and heard at the party. She taught me to say, I don't know if I wasn't sure about something instead of guessing. I signed papers saying I was willing to testify if the court needed me. That weekend, Jordan's mom finally agreed to shelter placement once she got discharged from the hospital. The hospice team got involved to manage her cancer care at the shelter. It broke my heart that she was dying, but at least she'd be safe from Tom now. Jordan texted me that his mom cried when she signed the papers, but said it was the right thing. The shelter had a medical wing where she could get her treatments without worrying about Tom. Meanwhile, the group chat from the party started falling apart as people got scared. Some of the hired teens backed out completely and deleted all their messages. Their parents didn't want them involved in a court case or dealing with an angry casino security guard. But 2 kids agreed to give statements through Proctor without using their real names. Even 2 more voices would help build the case against Tom. One girl sent Proctor photos she took of the empty house and Jordan's bruised arms. The other kid had recorded Tom yelling from outside when we were running away. Every piece of evidence mattered, even if most people were too scared to help. Proctor said anonymous statements were better than nothing, and she'd take whatever help she could get. Monday morning, Jordan texted me that his dad had been calling from random numbers all weekend, trying to reach him and his mom at the hospital. Jordan held his phone up to show me 17 missed calls from different numbers he didn't recognize. He played me a voicemail where Tom's voice came through clear as day, telling Jordan to answer the phone, or things would get worse when he got home. Jordan hit record on his old iPod and played the voicemail again while holding it next to the iPod's microphone. He did this with all 17 messages, each one getting angrier than the last. Tom didn't know Jordan was building a folder of evidence on that beat-up iPod his mom got him 3 Christmases ago. Tuesday afternoon, Proctor called to tell me the emergency protective order hearing was set for Thursday at 2 o'clock and asked if I could be there. My hands shook as I wrote down the courthouse address and courtroom number. She said I might not have to testify, but having me there would help show the judge how many people witnessed what happened. Wednesday dragged by like molasses, and I couldn't focus on anything at the school. Thursday came, and I sat in the courthouse hallway on a hard wooden bench, watching lawyers rush past with their rolling briefcases. Jordan and his mom were already inside courtroom 3 with Proctor when I got there. My stomach felt like it was doing backflips knowing Tom was in there too, probably in his casino uniform trying to look respectable. Through the small window in the door, I could see the judge shuffling through papers while Tom sat at a table across from Jordan and his mom. The judge started going through evidence piece by piece, first watching my video on a laptop the bailiff set up. Then she reviewed the body camera footage from when Kate served Tom the papers in the casino parking lot. She read through Peggy's statement about the years of screaming she heard through the walls. The medical reports from Jordan's mom's hospital visit got passed around showing the bruising patterns that didn't match her story about falling. Tom's face got redder with each piece of evidence the judge examined. When the judge asked Tom if he wanted to respond to the allegations, he stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. He started yelling that everyone was lying and this was all a setup to take his money. The bailiff stepped forward and told Tom to sit down and lower his voice. Tom kept going, saying Jordan was an ungrateful brat who stole from him, and now everyone was taking the kid's side. The judge banged her gavel and told Tom if he had one more outburst, she'd hold him in contempt. Tom sat down, but his hands were balled into fists on the table. The judge took 15 minutes to review everything before making her decision. She granted the emergency protective order for both Jordan and his mom, ordered Tom to stay 500 feet away from them, and told him he had to surrender any guns to the police within 24 hours. She scheduled supervised property retrieval for the following week, so Jordan and his mom could get their stuff with police present. Jordan's shoulders dropped like someone had lifted a 100-pound weight off them. Back at the casino, Holmes had been documenting Tom's work problems all week. Tom had been showing up late, snapping at customers and spending his breaks making angry phone calls in the parking lot. Holmes called Tom into his office Friday morning and told him his leave was extended indefinitely. He handed Tom a packet about the Employee Assistance Program and said Tom had to complete anger management before he could return to work. Holmes made it clear that any violation of the protective order or the anger management requirement would mean immediate termination. Tom knew his 20-year career at the casino was hanging by the thinnest thread. Saturday morning, Proctor picked up Jordan and his mom from the hospital to take them to the domestic violence shelter. The shelter was 30 minutes away in a different town where Tom wouldn't know to look for them. Jordan's mom could barely walk, but the shelter had wheelchairs and medical staff who knew how to coordinate with the oncology team at the hospital. They got a room with 2 beds and a small dresser where Jordan carefully arranged his mom's medications. The shelter had resources Tom could never control, like free legal help, counseling, and even job placement services. Jordan told me later that his mom cried when she saw they had a little kitchenette where she could make tea whenever she wanted, without asking permission. Monday, I went to the police station to give my official statement to Kate's about everything I saw at the party and afterward. He had me watch my video again and describe exactly what I was thinking when I recorded it. He typed up my statement and had me read it over twice before signing it. He said they'd keep my name redacted in most of the court filings to protect me from any retaliation from Tom or his friends at the casino. It felt good to tell the truth officially, with someone typing every word into the permanent record. Wednesday was the supervised property retrieval, and I heard about it from Jordan later. 3 police officers went with Jordan and his mom back to their empty house, while Tom had to stand in the driveway and watch. Jordan went straight to his parents' closet and pulled out a shoebox from the top shelf. Inside were photos from when he was little, before his mom got sick, before his dad started working at the casino, back when they used to go to the beach and smile for real. His mom grabbed her medical records and some clothes while Jordan packed his school stuff. The whole thing took 45 minutes while Tom stood there with his arms crossed and his face twisted up like he'd swallowed something sour. When they finished loading everything into Proctor's van, Tom had to leave first under police supervision. The officer followed Tom's car for several blocks to make sure he didn't circle back. For the first time since I'd known Jordan, Tom was the powerless one who had to do what other people told him. The school set up independent study for Jordan so he wouldn't fall behind while living at the shelter, and I started dropping off his assignments every Tuesday with the front desk staff. The first time I went, the woman at the desk took the folder and said Jordan was in art therapy, but she'd make sure he got it. 2 days later, I found an envelope in my locker with my name written in Jordan's handwriting, and inside was a pencil drawing of a sunrise over mountains, with "Thank you" written small in the corner. I kept that drawing folded in my wallet for months. 3 weeks after they moved to the shelter, I got permission from Proctor to visit during the dayroom hours. And when I walked in, Jordan was sitting with his mom, who actually had color in her cheeks for the first time since I'd known them. She was keeping food down and smiling at something on her phone, a real smile, not the forced one from the birthday party. Jordan had gotten cupcakes from the bakery down the street, chocolate with vanilla frosting, and we sat at a round table eating them, while his mom told us about the therapy dog that visited every Thursday. For that 1 hour, everything felt almost normal, like we were just friends hanging out after school, instead of kids dealing with abuse and cancer and police reports. The shelter staff told me later that Peggy Slater had dropped off a card for Jordan, saying she was proud of him for being brave and leaving her phone number if they ever needed anything. She also left a gift card for the grocery store and a note saying sometimes neighbors do more than just watch. They step up when it matters. Jordan's mom cried when she read it, because Peggy was the first person from their old life who reached out without judgment or questions. Meanwhile, at the casino, Holmes had another meeting with Tom about his extended leave, telling him it would continue until he completed the anger management program and the legal case was resolved. Tom's 20-year grip on everyone's life through money and fear was finally broken by paperwork and institutional accountability that he couldn't intimidate or control. Holmes documented everything in Tom's personnel file and made it clear that any violation of the court orders meant immediate termination with no severance or benefits. After Proctor and Kate's confirmed they had all my evidence backed up in their systems, I spent an afternoon updating all my privacy settings on social media and deleting the local copies of the videos and photos from my phone and computer. The weight of carrying those secrets finally lifted off my shoulders, though I still found myself checking my mirrors when I drove and looking over my shoulder in parking lots. Old habits from being followed die hard, I guess. About a month in, I got a text from Jordan that made me smile for real. Just a simple message saying his mom had laughed at something on TV. Real laughter, not the polite kind, and he hadn't heard that sound in 2 years. It was the first text from him that actually sounded like a teenager wrote it, with lowercase letters and no punctuation, not the formal scared messages from before. Weaver scheduled a follow-up meeting with me to talk about ongoing safety and how to handle any potential contact from Tom in the future. She sat across from me in her office and explained the difference between being prepared and being paranoid, teaching me which behaviors were reasonable caution and which ones might be trauma responses that could fade with time. She told me I did the right thing by speaking up, and that my video started the whole process that got Jordan and his mom to safety. On the bus ride home from that meeting, we passed by the shelter, and I could see it from the outside for the first time. Just a regular-looking building with warm lights in the windows, and the sound of laughter drifting from the day room where the support group was meeting. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the sunset painting the sky orange and pink behind the power lines, then texted it to Jordan with the words, "Tomorrow will be better," typed underneath. For the first time since that birthday party where everything started, since I took that $50 and walked into their empty house, since I watched Tom drag Jordan into the hallway while his mom screamed, I actually believed those words were true. Tomorrow really would be better for Jordan and his mom, and maybe for me too, because speaking up had changed everything, even though it was the scariest thing I'd ever done. That's the end of today's story. Thanks for sharing this little moment with me. It really means a lot. Subscribe if you'd like to keep spreading good energy together.